Good evening, everyone. I am a little bit late, as you can see. First off, congratulations, Eccentric, 4B, and Blue for first, second, and third, respectfully. And also, hello, Blue. Hello, Eccentric. Hello, 4B. Hello, Cobalt. Thank you for the stretch and the hydrate. Hello, Brian. Hello, Scott. How's everybody doing today? Hello, Kaju. I'm sorry that I'm late, okay? I went to bed very late, and then was like, I'm probably passing out through my alarm if I were to hazard a guess. And then I woke up at 6:11, I think. And as soon as I woke up, without even looking at my phone, I'm like, it's well past stream time. It has definitely been past stream time. And lo and behold, it was. So I desperately rushed out, tried to turn on my computer. While doing so, I opened up my phone, and one of my friends is just like, hey, I'm sorry to hear that you canceled stream today. I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't cancel stream. And they're like, didn't you cancel stream? And I'm like, no, I'm just late. It's like, oh, I thought you did. And I'm like, I hope nobody else thought that. Panic, 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 panic. Quickly wolf down some stir fry. Try to get everything set up. That's not going in the right direction now, is it? Let me see here. That's that one. Give me 1 second. Gotta fix that. We're in that scene. There we go. Fixed it. All good now. Oh, I just could not sleep either. Brain tired today, but otherwise okay. I'm glad to hear that, Eccentric. First, oh, wow. Oh, God, I forgot to turn off the sound effects. Thank you for the reminder. I would have I knew I was forgetting something. Just couldn't think about what it was. Pillow, sleep. Wow. Bonk. Wow. Stinky stuff. That one, that one, that one. That one, that one. That one. Yeah, that's all of the really distracting ones specifically. Alright, there we go. Why would I be sick when Martyr's sick, Brian? I don't know Martyr. Martyr's too cool for me. And I think we also live in completely different parts of the... how to say? Of North America, presuming she even lives in North America. I'm pretty confident she does, though. But still, I hope that Martyr feels better soon. Let me see. Hold on. I haven't done the hydrate yet. I swear, Cobalt, I'll do it. There's your hydrate. I'm trying to hydrate with some hot tea to get myself awake. As for me, I have a chance to get out of the boardwalk today on account of the warm weather. Well, that goes for one of us. We're actually kind of warm here, too. I don't like it. We were finally in the weather that I really like. And then just... all of a sudden it got hot again. But did you end up doing anything good there, Brian? Was there anything in particular that you enjoyed doing? And how about everybody else? How's everybody's day been so far? Happy Halloween weekend. You know, we're at that final final stretch before the true Halloween, but I don't know if anybody's going to be celebrating Halloween on Halloween. Some people are just like, yeah, we'll just do it on the weekend. We'll just have a good time on the weekend. Well, you skipped a couple of redeems. Oh, I'm sorry, Blue. 1 second. I will look. Oh. I see. You're referring to this, are you? Stroopwafel. Can't handle Halloween, too scary. I watched you play Visage, sir. Stroopwafel. There you go. Maybe game, nothing scary there. That game would. Yeah, no. That's just a big old no for me. Mostly just a chance to walk around after so many rainy Saturdays. Every Saturday for the last 7 to 8 weeks, it's been couch weather. I do enjoy some good couch weather, though. And yeah, 30 Celsius to freaking for us it went up to 20. We were sitting at like a comfortable 10 Celsius to like 10 to 12 during the day, and now it's up to, or at least today it was up to like 20 something, and it was like gross. That was just the ending cleanup stuff. You didn't even see the Lucy chapter. I didn't get to see a lot of it because I was downloading a couple of things to try and get the, how to say it, for some stuff, and it was like, oh my god, the streams are lagging so bad, but I'm trying my best to watch, even if I'm, you know, like, I'm missing every, how to say, for every, like, 10 seconds that I watch, I miss the next 5 seconds. And hello, Disco. Thank you so much for the hydrate and the posture check. It was a whole different day anyway. I wasn't officially started yet, so you would have missed either way. I missed many things that day. I guess to do, like, I guess a little bit of a statement here for people, like, not to share too much, but this is around the time of year from basically now until about early January to mid-February that I'm going to be doing some fun mental spiraling, and I'm going to be stuck in that deep, dark pit for a while because I'm very sensitive to weather changes, it would seem. So there won't be as amazing content creation during the next couple of months because it's very difficult for me to find the motivation to do the simplest of things. Like go to bed on time and get up on time. Which I know other people have also suffered through, so, you know. Shout out to my sad homies. We're in it together. We can get it. We can make it to the other side. Oh, and last what, shout out to my sad homies. We can make it to the other. You know what, Blue? Fine. Is that what you want, Blue? Shit. What? I can't even say we can make it through the other side? Come on. We gotta bring that positiveness at the end. Fine. I'll just do the shout out to my sad homies. Boom. Done. But yeah. Oh, also, I guess technically today would be the last day of Ace Week. So, happy final hours of Ace Week, everybody. Depending on if you believe that Sunday starts the week or if Sunday ends the week. Depending on which one you believe, you either have one more day of Ace Week celebrations or you have a few hours, depending on where you are. Happy birthday, Bells. Happy birthday, Bells. I don't know why you guys think that that stuff is, like, birthday stuff. Like, is that what you do for, like, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, too? Like, if you know somebody who's survived breast cancer, you just tell them happy birthday every day? Is that what this is? Is that how this works? Same idea with prostate cancer, or what are some of the other ones that they that has like an actual like dedicated to it? Ah! Hello, Aaron.
Also hi Will, hi chat, lurking cause almost live but hugs to all.
Good luck, be brave, don't fall in, Arrowhan. I'm an hour late to stream, so that's on me. Please have yourself a great stream. I hope you have a good time. My brain shut down for a second. So yeah, we'll stick with that. Hope you have a good time. No, hope you have a great time. And now there are people yelling in my hallway. But yeah, it's not going to be a super long stream today. It wasn't going to be regardless of when I started. We have 2 stories. And one of them is really, really long. I'm going to prove to you, Eccentric, that I can make it through a long story. Literally always leave myself. You look amazing, by the way. Oh, thank you, Aaron. That's very appreciated. I made the blood and the eyes myself. The outfit is totally just a pre-made outfit that I was like, oh, heck yeah, I'm going to build on top of that. I believe you will, even if I act sarcastic. It's actually a pretty long one. Like, here. Okay, it's long for someone like myself. We're not going to read this one first, but just for context, you can see it's not short. I think it still technically falls into the realm of short story. Doing a drive-by before bed. Have a good sleep, by the way, Solar C. Oh, I hope you had fun at Comic-Con. You nerd. You heckin' nerd. But please have yourself a great time. And also, Kuma. Why the heck have I not said hello to Kuma yet? I've seen him like 4 times in chat at this point. Hello, Kuma. I did thank you. Hell yeah. Aw, yeah. Have yourself a great sleep then, Solar C. Dream of all your nerdy, weeby things. Oh, wait. No, sorry. Kindly enjoy dreaming about Genshin Impact, because that seems to be a large part of your life. I was looking at something longer. The big problem is, Eccentric, because I would love to do SCP... what is it? Like, what happened at site? Insert name here. I will dream of Diluc. Diluc? Hold on. Genshin Impact. Diluc. So you into redheads then? I wish it would tell me, like, his temperament. Like, moody and... or the opposite. Oh my god, you have an actual emote. I'm judging you, Solarcy, but in a compassionate sort of way. Like, I'm worried, but not. And nice, Scott. This running joke that is my life. I guess I'm technically in on it because I know you and therefore have been a part of your life for a little while. I downloaded the game for... Those 3 years should have been your... How do you say? That should have been the thing that told you to stop playing. The goal was unachievable. There is no hope. Deluke will never come home. Or Deluce? 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 I don't know how to say the name. I'm sorry, Solarcy. Deluke. Dang it, so I said it right the first time. That's too far. So mean. She clearly enjoys Genshin Impact if she is still playing it. Because after 3 years of not getting the one character that you want, I feel like at that point the game better be good to be, or at least good for you in order to be able to keep going. Unless it's literally the spark that keeps you playing, in which case, Solarcy, please. There are other fish in the sea. It's lucky I like pretty games and open worlds. I can't disagree with you on the open worlds. I'm basically an addict for open world survival crafting games. Cratic games. Whoa, slip of the tongue there. Because they're basically my crack. Just like, woo, what's that? 60 hours just to be able to make it to like, maybe like a third, or maybe, yeah, probably 60 hours to get to like a quarter of the way through the game solo? Heck yeah, let's do it. Mindlessly gathering materials in order to make like a tiny percentage of progress? Yeah, I'd play that. Valheim is a game that I love, and many of them like it. Anyway, so Solarcy, please go have yourself a great night and have a great sleep. Don't stay here on account of me, and I'm sorry for saying that Deluke is not coming home. Of course he's going to come home at some point if you keep playing. Statistically proven to be so. Good. I'm glad. Sorry, everyone. As I said, I'm, my brain go burr, but not productively. Okay. Damn it, Cobalt! Dang it, Blue! You heckin' nerds. Doing all the nerd-like things. Alright, we want to be here. There we go. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Oh god, I still have that thing above my head. I do, but that's probably a good thing. Because then we can already change it. Tap. Hope I'm spelling that correctly. And... Y-A-R-T. Oh, that's an A. Nyarlathotep. Okay, there we go. Boop. Perfect. that'll be the story we're reading today, ladies and gentlemen, besides the other one, Leviathan. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Eccentric, it's Nyarlathotep, right? That's how you say it? Nyarlathotep? Even though subtitles cannot distinguish the word. Because I always called it, like, nyarlathotep. I always would forget the R for some reason. Then every time I tried to Google it with my pathetic dyslexic brain, I'd be like, why can't I find it? Because if you look him up, he's a fantastic looking creature. A friend of mine was playing a D&D game, or DMing a D&D game, and he used Nyarlathotep's art in like one of his, like, you know, like the long spirally head art. He used it as like a final boss fight, and I wish I was there for it because it sounded super cool. Like one of those moments where he, what was it? He was working off a module and basically like super powered the final boss through just like a series of events. And eventually, because it was like, well, the boss is now like beyond beatable, so I'm basically doing the like, what's the idea there? Like the Shojin attitude of Shonen? I can't remember if it's Shonen or Shojin. But attitude where like everybody gets to tap into like their full potential. Like everyone was connected in some way to like a different being of power. And because of that, they all basically went into how to say, like, they all went into like their own like god forms or their demigod forms, and apparently it was super freaking cool. I think it literally ended with like essentially like a tear in reality, and one of the characters sacrificed themselves in order to drag the overpowered boss through that like rift as the rest of the party closed it behind them. And like that was basically the end of their adventure. Like they won, but at the cost of one of the players or one of the characters. Apparently it was very, very good. Sorry, I'm not doing it any justice. Anyway, we're gonna read this story, if anybody would like to follow along. I'm gonna do my best. Some of the words in here are a little bit complex, as you have witnessed in the SCP series readings and the random series of stories. So I'm gonna try my best. I might fumble a little bit from time to time. I apologize. Let's have one more quick sip of tea before we start. Thank you very much, Eccentric. I did not even think about that. It's because it started with an S, so in my head it just filled it in as story rather than SCP. Yeah, that says story. It's only 3 letters and they're all capitalized, but it's story. It's story. Could you imagine? Everyone just like, after I upload this, everyone's just like, this isn't an SCP, and it's just like, fuck. I think at that point I would just put a bar over it and just stick the actual text on top of it. Probably was, to be honest. I'm sure there's something in one of the SCPs that sounds like nyarlathotep. Also, nyarlathotep is how to say, there is ambience by Cryochamber. Hold on. Yeah, nyarlathotep, Dark Music Part 1. I use a lot to try and induce sleep for myself. If anybody likes using like dark ambience to sleep, but I'm a bit of an oddball when it comes to trying to sleep, so I mean, I know a lot of people in chat already are aware of the one example that comes to mind about things that I listen to relax, so maybe I'm just broken. But who knows? Alright. Volume seems pretty good. So, I guess without further ado, why is it stupid? If it's stupid but it works, it's not stupid. Arrowan, I like listening to World War I ambience to calm down. Literally, YouTube World War I ambience, and it's probably the top one. All it is rain, distant gunfire, occasional like distant artillery shells, and then at the very beginning, about a minute in, and at 45 minutes, is a Stuka dive bomber sound that, and then you just hear. Those are the only ones where I'm like, all right, well, that's not relaxing. It's neat, but it's not relaxing. And hello, Pavlov. And, I don't need hugs because I don't like hugs. And I am sad, but it's okay because that's just the season that we're in. And it's going to be like this for another, like, 4 months, and I'm just okay with it at this point. It does finally, I just had the little, like, puzzle piece click the other day. How to say, that was the final piece that I needed like 3 days ago, where I was like, oh, I think I finally figured out why I don't have any real interest in Halloween, but I like doing it because I know other people like doing it. It's because around the beginning of October is when my ADHD starts to kick in really badly, because I basically fall into like an odd little like pre-depression manic state for like about 2 weeks. A little bit more towards the end of September, but still. And then like once that starts happening, it's like, oh, that's when the dip starts to happen. Your ADHD starts and stops. No. Sorry, Pablo, I'm not explaining it correctly. I'm saying that it becomes like a manic state where like throughout the year I have ADHD, but it's very, very. I've developed systems to function with it, but it's like near the end of September. Also, hello, Dorn. That it goes into like a hyperdrive state where like focus is really difficult. Hyper focus is spontaneous and long lasting. Like memory becomes even worse than it already is. And then there's just like, hello, not the big boss, how are you? And then just after that, like 2 to 4 weeks of like ADHD mania, I just nosedive. And the ADHD remains, but it's like different now. It's like, how to say, it's I don't know how to describe it. I don't know if I want to describe it. I think it's too personal to describe. Yeah, I don't want to go. I don't want to step over that barrier. The fact that I'm even sharing this is already a little bit beyond my comfort zone, but I get that people suffer through this, so I want them to know that they're not alone should they be suffering through it. Yeah, sad is a lot harder on folks, and they have a lot of depression, anxiety, and you see all year round. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, we're not here for sads. We're here for spooky. So, we're going to read, and I think I linked it already, right? Yes, I did. All right. In case you did, it's in the a little bit above the chat. We're going to read Nyarlathotep. You don't have to explain anything. You don't have to explain anything. Can a brother get some context? Summary, not the big boss. Shout out to all my sad homies. We're in this together and we'll get through this. That's basically the context. I think chat can agree that basically summarizes most of it. All right. Now, we're going to go ahead and read Nyarlathotep. All right, I can do one more hydrate, Mama M. I can do that, thank you. How you doing, by the way, Mama M? I hope that you're having a good weekend so far. Why can't I put sticky notes on you? Because I want to upload this to YouTube, Syrinx. And I don't want to be covered in stinky notes when I do that. Content creation. Anyway, okay, and thank you for the cupcakes, by the way. All right, now I'm starting to read because I've tried to start 4 times now, and this time we're starting. We're starting. I'll post it one more time just in case it disappeared for people. There you go. That's what we're going to be reading right now. Excuse me. This is Nyarlathotep, written by H.P. Lovecraft. Nyarlathotep, the crawling chaos. I am the last. I will tell the audit void. I do not recall distinctly when it began, but it was months ago. The general tension was horrible. To a season of political and social upheaval was added a strange and brooding apprehension of hidden physical danger, a danger widespread and all-embracing, such a danger that may be imagined only in the most horrible phantoms of the night. I recall that people were about with pale and worried faces, and whispered warnings and prophecies which none dared consciously repeat or acknowledge to himself that he had heard. A sense of monstrous guilt was held upon the land. And out of the abysses between the stars swept chill currents that made men shiver in dark and lonely places. There was a demonic alteration in the sequence of seasons. The autumn heat lingered fearsomely, and everyone felt that the world, and perhaps the universe, had passed from the control of known gods or forces to that of gods. Perhaps the universe had passed from the control of known gods or forces to that of gods and forces which were unknown. And it was then that Nyarlathotep came out of Egypt. Who was he? None could tell, but he was of the old native blood and looked like a pharaoh. The Felens kneeled when they saw him, yet could not say why. He said he had risen up out of the darkness of 27 centuries, and that he had heard messages from places not of this planet. Into the lands of civilization went Nyarlathotep, swarthy, slender, and sinister, always buying strange instruments of glass and metal and combining them into instruments yet stranger. He spoke much of sciences, of electricity and psychology, and gave exhibitions of power which sent his spectators away speechless, yet which swelled his fame to exceeding magnitude. Men advised one another to see Nyarlathotep and shuddered, and where Nyarlathotep went, rest vanished, for the small hours were rent with screams of nightmare. Never before had screams of nightmare been such a public problem. Now the wise men almost wished they could forbid sleep in the small hours, that the shrieking of cities might less horribly disturb the pale, pitying moon as it glittered on green waters gliding under bridges, and old stepless crumbled under the sickly sky. I remember when Nyarlathotep came to my city, the terrible city of unnumbered crimes. My friends had told me of him, and of the impending fascination and allurement of his revelations, and I burned with an eagerness to explore his uttermost mysteries. My friends said they were horrible and impressive beyond the most feverish imaginations. And what was thrown on the screen in the darkened room prophesied things that none but Nyarlathotep dared prophesy, and in the sputter of his sparks there was taken from men that which had never been taken before, which sued only in the eyes. I heard it hinted abroad that those who knew Nyarlathotep looked on sights which others saw not. It was in the hot autumn that I went through the night with the restless crowd to see Nyarlathotep. Through the sweltering night and up the endless stairs into the choking room. And shadowed on the screen, I saw hooded forms amongst ruins and yellow, evil faces peering from behind monuments. And I saw the world battling against blackness, against the waves of destruction from ultimate space, whirling, churning, struggling around the dim, cooling sun. Then the sparks played amazingly around the heads of spectators, and hair stood up on end, while shadows more grotesque than I could tell came out and squatted on the heads. And when I, who was colder and more scientific than the rest, muttered the terrible protest of imposture and static electricity, Nyarlathotep drove us out, down the dizzying stairs into the damp, hot, deserted midnight streets. I screamed aloud that I was not afraid, that I could never be afraid, and others screamed with me in solace. We swore to one another that the city was exactly the same and still alive, and when electric lights began to fade, we cursed the company over and over, and laughed at the queer faces we made. I believe we felt something coming down from the greenish moon, for when we began to depend on its light, We drifted into curious, involuntary marching formations and seemed to know our destination, though we dared not think of them. Once... Raid incoming? I appreciate that, Eccentric. I'll wait a second then. Oh, I don't even remember where I am. Hold on, I'm just going to quickly put my... Right there. I could probably get one more line in. Once we looked at the pavement and made the block and found the blocks loose and displaced by grass, with a scarce line of rusted metal to sew where the tramways had run. And again we saw a tramcar, lone, windowless, dilapidated, and almost on its side. When we gazed around the horizon, we could not find the third tower by the river, and noticed that the silhouette of the second tower had been ragged from at the top. About to happen. I appreciate that, Eccentric. There it is. Hello, Spicy. Thank you so much for the raid. Hello, Eccentric. Hello, Spicy. How's everybody doing today? I may do one of them there fancy shout-outs. Boom. I'm done with Outlast 2. Aw, yeah. Nice. How was it, Spicy? Wait, was Outlast 2 the one that has a very questionable... Yep, okay. That is the one with the very questionable ending. And hey, TK, how's it going? Hello, everybody. For those who don't know, my name is WillSleepsNot. You may call me Will, you may call me Sleeps, you may call me WillSleepsNot. I'm an insomniatic, ADHD, dyslexic VTuber who plays a variety of games, and usually on Sundays I do, or Saturdays I do art. But today we're reading some scary stories. Hello, Cooks, how's it going? We are in the middle of reading Nyarlathotep. We're almost done. We have 2 big paragraphs left to go, and then we're going to be reading a super long one. Oh, thank you so much, Cooks.
Cooks 117 gifted a tier 1 sub to spicy liggend streepje Spijkstraat.
That's very
They have
kind of
given
you,
13
Cooks.
gift subs in the channel.
I didn't realize that you also did the 13th thing. I don't remember that ever happening. Well, I'll have to look into that, I suppose. But thank you so much, Cooks. And I'm glad to hear that you got it done, Spicy. But yes, I remember, what the heck was it? And hello, Mimi. How are you? Oh, Falala-chan was playing it too, and she had no idea about the ending. So once the part happened, the birthing part, she was like, "What is happening? What is happening?" And trying like desperately to put her character in the way of everything. Censored in time. I'm very glad that you did, Eccentric, because it is a very it is a scene. It is a scene. Oh my goodness. I had 2 PNGs at the ready. Heck yeah, you were like, "Oh, you can't defeat me, game. I am prepared. Behold, my 2 images that will blot out your non-censored shenanigans." Though that you are allowed to play that game on Twitch, right? So theoretically, they know. And hey, Navek, how's it going, my dude? So they have to know that those scenes exist. So is it one of those, theoretically, you could be like, "Well, sorry, chat, we're just gonna endure this." Or, or is it one of those situations where it's like, it's expected that you try to censor to the best of your abilities? What's funny is that that's what was left. They had a worse. They had worse originally. That it was gonna make it AO. Oh, remind me what AO again is. I know that it's like a high rating, but I can't remember what it means anymore. Content warning tells people that you can expect that kind of stuff. Ah. The birth of a child is beautiful. Adults only. Thank you. I was pretty confident it was something like that, but I wasn't sure. I take it you enjoyed the situation then, Mimi? You were amused by the situation? And thank you for reminding me that I don't suck Vitrify. I appreciate that. Hold on, sorry, I'm just checking things. Because Edda Echta is a bum. There we go. Oh, I was making lunch. I was barely paying attention. Ah, the birth of a child is beautiful. Oh, did you enjoy it? Oh, heavens no. I was making some lunch. The only non-porn game that I know is Hatred. Yeah, but Hatred was trying to purposefully be controversial, right? Like, Hatred was literally just like, lol, let's make ourselves so controversial that our game is going to get sales out of it. Like, it was the perfect example of, like, what do you call it? Like, controversy marketing? I mean, it's going exactly eccentric, exactly. Oh, sorry, the head pats. Yes, 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 yes. No, I'm not happy about this, Kuma. I can't believe you've done this to me. Pardon the yawning. Stroopwafel. For Blue. Yeah, I figured this was for Blue. And Moon. Oh my god, yeah, Moon would appreciate this too. There. You got what you wanted. Let's see. Realistically, the actual graphical content is not hardcore in that game. Just the subject matter. Oh yeah, like eccentric. It's almost no different than a twin stick shooter. I'm pretty sure it's technically kind of a twin stick shooter to some extent, right? It's just literally the difference between it is just like, ooh, we're edgy, boy. My bestie's mom wasn't on. I went for sleepover. For the first time, she framed pictures of childbirth in the guest room. And my friend was like, what? Oh, Mom, why didn't you put these away? I was like, because it's beautiful. Well, for some people, it could potentially traumatize them. So well done to that mother. Outlast on the others removed content in both Whistleblower and 2 because it really was that graphic. Imagine being one of the, how to say it, either the animators or one of the modelers or even one of the TDs for the company that makes it. And they're just like, I need to do what? And it's just like, you need to do this. It's like, oh, okay, I guess I get paid to do this. Oh god, I'd quit. Nope. Well, I'd probably never get a job there to begin with, but like, no. Also, I'm pretty sure to some extent that's actually torture. Because that's just like cruel. Yeah, no, that's pretty. Yeah, yeah, that's pretty nutty. Just like, yeah, you need to watch people stand on landmines and stuff, and it's like, do I? Can't I like animate the foliage or something? We have wind effects for that. Oh. Yeah, I was warned when interviewing for a game company that there may be uncomfortable discussions, but making people watch it. Yeah, that's a whole. Like, imagine working there and being like, all right, everybody, we're working on we're working on The Last of Us 2. And it's just like, oh, I remember enjoying Last of Us 1. That's exciting. And it's just like, all right, here's your mandatory work. Mandatory work video watching. And everyone's like, oh, okay. And it's literally the files are like, let's say, like, they're 10 files and they're just called like Last of Us Reference 1. And it just like, and everyone's just like, click, and you slowly just see everybody's faces go. And it's like, I think, did you send us the wrong file, sir? No, I didn't. Oh, okay. And I have to watch all of them? Mm-hmm. Oh. I double checked. I've watched them all 6 times to make sure that you guys are watching the correct ones. Time to watch degloving today. Eccentric, degloving. That has to do with welding, right? Is it welding or is it... Oh, what is it? Because I know what it is. It's the whole... I'm pretty sure if I recall correctly, that's the... And I'm so sorry that we're going down this. Is any form of construction... Oh. Because I swear... There's a certain thing with, like, pressurized stuff. Don't wear rings on the job for a reason. Right. And hello, Luna D. You came in at an interesting time. We're talking about ominous things. And Mimi, I'm specifically trying not to cross a certain line. I've been trying to do that a lot recently because I've been in a really, really bad ADHD brain. So, like, my ability to fully register, like, boundaries has been a little bit more difficult in terms of, like, no, this is when you need to staffu, you know? Like, you don't talk about this. And sometimes, and I'm just sitting there just like, no, nobody needs to hear about what happens when you wear a ring in a construction site. No one needs to hear that. Like, I can say, like, yeah, as Eccentric was saying, you don't wear rings or wedding rings at a construction site because it's dangerous. And it's like, why is it dangerous? It's like, it's just dangerous. And Blue, you missed head pats and the word. Kuma did it just for you. Kuma's a real homie. But yeah. Like, imagine having to watch that. That sounds so freaking nutty. Can't wear synthetic fibers or wear contacts either in electrical field specifically. Yeah, because synthetic fibers... Is it because synthetic melts? Same with the contacts, right? It's because they can melt? The word squints. Oh, Mimi, that... I have a redeem for a specific word that people like having me say, and I'm not saying it because the redeem hasn't been redeemed. Stroopwafel, so therefore I'm not saying it. I'm a bit of a salesman, you see. I drive a hard bargain. You don't got the points, you don't get the word. Stroopwafel. But it's a double-edged sword, because if people start redeeming it, then I have to say it a lot. Yeah, I may have potentially made a mistake in that regard. Whoopsie doodle. Stroop va. Full. No, I said two different things. No, those were two different things. Luna D, you're fired. All right. Remember that one day? What was it? You couldn't say a thing. I couldn't say a thing. I don't remember what it was. Oh, what was it? Yeah, that's right. I wasn't allowed to say a thing for an hour. Oh, I wasn't allowed to say like for an hour. That's right. I wasn't allowed to say like. I had to add like I had to add a pretty big amount of time to that subathon. No, Blue, it's too difficult. I'm too bad at it. Like what context are you talking about? Stroopwafel people like I'm not sure anymore, Mimi. At one point, it started becoming a thing because I was born in the Netherlands, so like I'm native Dutch, if you will. So I was just talking about stuff from the Netherlands, and somehow it became a redeem. I don't know why it became a redeem, but it became a redeem. It's been a redeem for like a year at this point, I'm pretty sure. Pardon the yawning. So proud of myself. Luna D, if I ever meet you in real life, I'm gonna scowl at you. I'm gonna just sit there like this for like 20 minutes, just... You old Hollander. No, I'm not from Holland. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm technically from the northeast, whereas I believe Holland, North and South Holland are like center south, I believe is where those provinces are. Well, I'm planning to visit Europe next year. We'll have fun visiting Europe next year. I'm in Canada. And I will be in Canada. So, meh. Yeah. Well, alas, Pindakas. Large quantities of information. Oh, I just specifically said it, eccentric, because I'm trying to specifically say Netherlands because it's important, because there's how to say it. There's technically three things. There's Holland, the Netherlands, and the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Those are like the three tiers. Holland is technically two different provinces. There's this North and South Holland, which is North and South Holland. And then there's the Netherlands, and then there's the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which is technically, you know, like the Dutch and its colonies, etc. Like Curaçao, which I don't think is technically under Dutch rule anymore, as far as I'm aware. I have to ask about your traveling. It's super responsive. Sorry. Oh, no, you're totally fine, Mimi. So I use the, a motion capture program on the iPhone. And basically the model that I'm using is a Vroid model, so it's just made in Vroid. It's quite simple to make. I made it myself. And normally it wouldn't be very responsive if it wasn't for this motion capture thing. There's a very easy way to make a Vroid model work with this program. It just requires a little bit of Unity finagling and some and some scripts, but I've done it live on stream before. It takes about about 7 minutes in total. And I'm sorry, Luna D. I didn't want to get an iPhone, but it's the only phone that has this particular software. And I got lucky because I kind of wanted it, and then it turns out it's not. I have facial mocap. I believe it is. I don't know if I can check it from here, because I don't want to turn off the program. I think it's the only thing that I can get to upgrade my capture. Yeah, I got lucky because I found an old iPhone. Exactly, Mimi. That's exactly what I did. I happened to find an old iPhone X that was on sale and was just like, this is never gonna happen again. Bye. He's doing it live. First of all, hello, Avatar. And second of all, yeah, we're doing it live. I want to test it first, though. Yeah, yours is fine, Luna D. Like, I wouldn't say you have to do it. Hazel's cool. I hope I said that correctly. Hello. Thank you so much for stopping by. Bubba motion capture is always so slow. Granted, I'm using Live 2D. Ah, interesting. I don't know the Live 2D side, unfortunately. I only, how to say it? I only know the, how to say it, like the VC face 3D side. So, I notice a lot of people have the same problem. But for some reason, Shy Lily has really responsive. Interesting. How? I know that you need that little extra software to make it happen. There's probably a way to do it. I don't know personally. And also, thank you so much for stopping by, Link. Thank you for the lurk. I personally don't know how to approach it, but there's no way that there isn't something out there that can explain how to do that, Mimi. Might be stronger hardware. It could potentially be that too, that Shy Lily is just rocking some like intense hardware. True. A PC is a potato. Unfortunately, tis one of the problems of we of the non-flesh. We require hardware for us to look truly lifelike. Separate computers for streaming. That is true, Lunady. Like if I could afford that. Time to fund the Mimi needs a better PC. It's true, Spicy. Get the GoFundMe going. Or I guess in our case, get the put bar on screen and say, this is the get a better PC fund. Please contribute. I kind of did in a way. Oh, go on. I made them all. Oh, okay. Sorry, I keep looking at the story and I'm like, I'm right there. I'm so close to the end, but I'm having conversations with people and I can't get away from that. They were raising funds for it technically. Oh, that's right. Spicy's getting a new PC, right? No, Mimi. You are totally fine. You are absolutely fine. I have highlighted where I am, so I'm not going to get lost. This is totally fine. Do not worry about it. Yes, I was telling them to use money for a new thing first. It's very helpful, I agree. And have yourself a good lurk, Blue. Thank you so much for popping in and out. Good luck with whatever it is that you're doing. Ah. Oh, that's why Blue is popping in and out. All right, that makes a lot more sense. And then they can pay me. Yeah, buy a good PC first. Then boom. The rest of the money goes towards the model creation. Or model purchase? Payment? There's a word there that I can't find. There's always one that goes by. All right. I'm going to finish reading the story really quick just because I want to finish this one at least so that I can be like, ha, okay, we finished one story. So I apologize for everybody here who unfortunately did not get to see hear the first half or the first 2/3 of the story. We're currently reading this story right here. We are on the second last paragraph. I will just simply start from the beginning because I think that's just easier for everybody. So I'm going to keep going, and we'll be back in a moment. I believe we felt something coming down from the greenish moon, for when we began to depend on its light, we drifted into curious involuntary marching formations and seemed to know our destinations, though we dared not think of them. Once we looked at the pavement and found the bricks loose and displaced by grass, with scarce a line of rusted metal to shew where the tramways had run. And again we saw a tram car, lone, windowless, dilapidated, and almost on its side. When we gazed around the horizon, we could not find the third tower by the river, and noticed the silhouette of the second tower was ragged at the top. When we split up into narrow columns, each of which were drawn in a different direction. One disappeared in a narrow alley to the left, leaving only an echo of shocking moan. Another filed down a weed-choked subway entrance, howling with laughter that was mad. My own column was sucked towards the open country, and presently I found a chill which was not of the hot autumn. For as we stalked out in the dark moor, we beheld around us the hellish moon glitter of evil snows, trackless, inexhaustible snows, swept asunder in one direction only, where lay a gulf all the blacker for the glittering walls. The columns seemed very thin. Indeed, as it plowed dreamily into the gulf, I lingered behind, for the dark rift in the green litten snow was frightful, and I thought I heard the reverberations of a disquieting wail as my companions vanished. But my power to linger was slight, as if beckoned by those who had gone before. I half floated between the titanic snowdrifts, quivering and afraid, into the sightless void of the unimaginable. Hello, Geekbot. Screamingly sentient, dumbly delirious. Only the gods that were can tell. A sickly, sensitive shadow writhing in hands that are not hands, and whirling blindly past ghoulish midnights of rotting creation, corpses of dead worlds with sores that were cities, carnal winds that brush the pallid stars and made them flicker low. Beyond the world's vast ghosts of monstrous things, half-seen columns of unsanctified temples, that rest on nameless stones beneath space and reach up to dizzying vaca above the spheres of light and darkness. And through this revolting graveyard of a universe that muffled maddening beats of drum and thin monotone whine of blasphemous flutes with inconceivable unlit chambers beyond time, the detestable pounding and piping whereupon dance slowly, awkwardly, and amongst the gigantic tenebrous ultimate gods, the blind, voiceless, mindless gargoyles whose soul is Nyarlathotep. And that was Nyarlathotep by H.P. Lovecraft. Hold on, let me do a thing real quickly here. There we go. All right, let me read chat really quickly. Squeezing scissors, and I don't have my comfort blanket. Squeezing through theater chair. Sorry, Mimi. Excuse me, Lady Luna. Few more sleeps over. Excuse. Geekbot, please. You gonna share that popcorn? You got $5. Ah, wonderful. I'll have to read from the beginning. I'm sorry, Geekbot. We were already like 2/3 of the way through at that moment, so I apologize. But there we go. So we're then gonna go to this one, and we're gonna take a tiny break because I'm gonna need some more tea because my throat is being a little bit. So a little bit more honeyed tea will help with my general reading. I hope I can read this one properly. It's fine. I've been busy. You better be taking care of yourself, Geekbot. Shaking a finger at you. Also loved the re-editing that you did of the Reddit story. It was very, very good. Honey tea. Well, it's honey tea. It's technically rooibos, but I put like a big glob of honey into it because I know it's good for my throat. Even though I personally am not a big honey fan, I know that it's good for me. It's why I try to put a lot of like good things into the meals that I make, even if I don't particularly like them. It's just like, no, this is healthy. This is the right thing to do. What can I say? I love scary movies. All right. So we're going to take a quick, well, probably, I'm going to try to make it 5, but it might be a little bit past 5-minute break because I need to go get some tea. I need to go use the washroom. I need to go grab a snack. And then we're going to read Leviathans. This one's going to take me a while. I don't know how long this is going to take. I'm going to try my absolute dangdest to read it nice and smoothly, but no promises. So we're going to take a quick 5 to 10 minute break if you guys can and are able to. I hope that you get up and stretch, grab yourself something to eat, grab yourself something to drink. Make sure you guys are taking care of yourselves, especially you, Geekbot. I'll be back in 5 to 10 minutes, and I will see you guys very soon. Well, that took a little bit longer than expected. I apologize, everyone. The one wonderful thing, or one of the wonderful things of having the ADHD brain, you're just like, oh, I just need to do this and this. And then, you roam into the kitchen to go grab yourself a new cup of tea. And you're like, well, I mean, I could really quickly wipe down the counters. And it's like, I mean, I don't have to. And it's like, yeah, but we're gonna. And then it's just like, hey, this cupboard could be rearranged a little bit. Shim, 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 shim. It's like, yeah, that's way better. It's like, what was I doing again? Oh, yeah, cup of tea. That's right. And thank you, Brian. And thank you, Geekbot. And thank you, Eccentric. There we go. Bam, 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 bam. That was one too many bams. Well, that last bam is reserved for whoever else pops in to say something similar. Easy. All right. This one's going to be one that's probably going to have a little bit of breaks in between because it's long. But I hope that everybody enjoys. I'm going to try my best. And Mimi, thank you so much for the follow. That's very kind of you. I didn't see it. I'm sorry. Wait, was I gone for 9 minutes? Oh my god. Seriously, I did actually rearrange a cupboard and wipe down my kitchen counters. That wasn't an exaggeration. That was just like, oh, I should do that real quick. Why? Heck if I know. But there you go. That's the thing we're going to be reading today. Leviathans. Ooh, wait. Hold on. Do I have that other one? Yeah. Maybe that's too noisy. Do we have some nice, like... Hold on. We're looking for a little bit of ambience really quickly. No. Ooh, how about this? We'll just stick with the one that we have. That's just easier. I'm overthinking it too much. All right. Let's see how this goes. All right. Leviathans. I don't know who this is by. I was 4 years old when I first dreamed of the Leviathans. The details grew fuzzy now, as all memories that old do. I was dreaming of something else at the time, something unrelated but just as strange. They were flickering dreams, switching and shifting, dreams that would have terrified me if my brain had been cruel enough to remember them. Dreams of worlds gone dark, of eerie landscapes under alien skies, of small places in the plains and forests that were not what they seemed at all. And through it all, something watched me, tall and green, like a hybrid of a bat and cicada. Sometimes it was close, sometimes it was far away. I even think I remember it speaking to me once, though I do not remember what it said. But I remember that it was, in some way, connected to the dream that came next. The dream that was more than a dream, that dream that was a memory that has stayed with me clear as a glass bauble ever since. I was older, perhaps in my teens, Water pressed mercilessly against my body, and though I could breathe through a tube in my mouth, I knew I had only minutes to live. But right then, I didn't care about that. All I cared about was the vast darkness of my surroundings, an impossible, crushing dark, so thick I couldn't see my body or the ground I stood upon. That dark stretched into the sky, forming a perfect, unbroken dome. Or perhaps not quite unbroken. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I saw there was a glow before me. It was faint, so faint as to almost be imperceivable. But it was undeniably there, turning the water there to an impossibly dark midnight blue instead of black. But that was not what made me gasp in awe, or what made me remember that moment to this day. It was in fact that before the glow, shapes moved. They were colossal ancient things, towering miles above the sea floor, so heavy, so huge that I could not see their shape if they hadn't been so far away. There was something in them of whales, the vast blue or finned whales. But they were not those creatures, as much as I tried to tell myself they were. Nor were they giant squids or deep-sea shrimp or rotten mats of vegetation, though they resembled all these things as well in their own way. But they were alive, I know that. Their limbs moved, though impossibly slowly. Their tails beat up and down in strokes that took minutes to complete. Tiny lights, like distant stars, flickered from their sides, and those structures that were not their heads. Once one of them opened their mouth, and the motion it made to do so sickens me to this day. They were not whales. They were my leviathans. And thank you, Cobalt. I'll take your hydrate and your stretch. I don't know how many there were. A dozen, at least. Half a dozen, at least. A pod of impossible things slowly moving along. Perhaps there were more around me, invisible in the darkness. Perhaps they stretch on forever in that crushing, suffocating shadow. I didn't know, and I never will, for it was then that I awoke. Hold on, sorry, one moment. At the time, of course, I brushed the experience off as a strange dream. I had told my parents in my disjointed, childish way, and they smiled indulgently, stroking my head and letting me finish my breakfast. Even I expected to forget it by the end of the day, after spending the waking world playing with toys and preschool friends. But I did not forget. A week later, I dreamed the dream again. The other dreams were not there. I was dreaming simply of time spent. I was simply dreaming of time spent on the playground, of small, innocent things a child dreams of. But I turned around, and there they were again, my leviathans, moving slowly along, vast things in the crushing dark. Perhaps they had some purpose moving there through the water. Perhaps they communicated in some way I had no method of perceiving, or perhaps my brain idly thought they were not even alive at all. I could never tell when they would return. It wasn't always a dream. Sometimes it would be a daydream or a sudden, powerful flashback. I found myself doodling them, these huge shapes looming across the page, trying to pick out their exact details. Anything else I would have been unable to draw from memory, but this was like a movie playing in my head that I could go back to and replay at any time. Slowly, over dozens of iterations, they finally became clear. My mother found these drawings scattered over my room while I was at school. I always feared that she would suspect something was wrong with me. After all, why would I draw the same thing, entirely imaginary, entirely imaginary thing? But when I asked, she sat down at the table with one of the drawings in her hand, looking at me. Why would anything be wrong? Because I've just been drawing the same thing over and over and over. What's wrong with that? Sometimes it takes an artist a long time to portray that in what's in their imagination. The important thing is that you're practicing, and you're getting better every time. But shouldn't I be learning to draw other things? Do you want to? I thought about that for a few minutes. Then I smiled and shook my head. No. She smiled and handed me back the drawing. Through middle and high school, I had two loves, art and marine biology. I was obsessed with the ocean, with the strange things that moved within it and the mysteries that lurked unsolved in its depth. But my true gift proved to be with a pencil or a paintbrush. I put that gift to good use, drawing flowers and figures and landscapes as my teachers requested. I even had a private tutor when I was in high school. And though we may not have parted on the best terms, I credit so many of my current abilities to him, both artistic and otherwise. I only knew him for 4 years, but the impact he had on my life was indescribable. The first time I went to learn with him, I simply sat at a table in his cozy studio. Paintings of strange things hung from the wall, things whose identity you could almost discern, but not quite. His old Tammy cat slept in front of a crackling fire, and his soft, soothing voice traversed the entire place like the mahogany finish that colored it. I simply sat there, pencil in hand, and he stood at his easel, not even watching me, simply adding yellow spirals to whatever strange, impossible image he was creating. What should I draw? I asked him, staring blankly at the page before him. He shrugged, not even turning to me. Whatever you want. The first thing that comes to your mind. Felix, if you'd like. I looked at Felix the cat, upside down on the hearth, feet in the air as he snored lightly. He was cute in his way, but I didn't want to draw him. I wanted to draw my leviathans. And so I did. My pencil picked out the familiar curved lines, the strange strills that were neither limb nor tentacles, the eyeless faces, the finned tail. They marched, a whole pod of them, across the page, and before them grew a landscape. It was not in my memory, but it flowed out of me, a strange, beautiful panorama, accentuating their titanic size. There were cities there, beneath the sea, and though I did not know what inhabited them, I knew it was not people. Mountains loomed, deep trenches disappeared into gaping maws of dark shadow. Shapes that were not fish darted between rippling stems that were neither kelp nor eels. And far, far above, over the surface of the water, Miss Clementine. Yes? I jumped at the sound of the tutor's voice. What is it? Our time for today is up, I'm afraid. His voice slowed and stopped. He looked at the drawing, pondering it until he spoke. 2 suns. I'm sorry. 2 suns, one above the other, rising over the water. Oh, I said, astonished, and immediately started scribbling away. Of course. How he had known exactly what was needed? How had he known exactly what was needed? I finished, holding up my creation with a grin of triumph, and he smiled as well, watching me. Now, I think you should sign it. I thought about it for a long time, staring down at the smudged, scribbled page, and then, after a moment, I bent down and, in the tiniest bottom corner, I drew a little rose, my middle name. He smiled knowingly and winked at me. Run along now, Miss Clementine. Wouldn't want to keep your mother waiting. I studied under him for 4 years, 4 of the happiest years of my life. I lived for that hour a week that I went to draw with him and learned what he had to teach me. We always did something different every time, never what I expected, but always somehow what I needed. Sometimes he taught me fundamentals. I would draw a mug or a flower, or Felix's fluffy self, and he would teach me about perspective and shading and color. Sometimes he would encourage me to simply draw, to go wherever my imagination took me, and it always took me to some very strange places. And then, just after I turned 18, he gave me a special assignment, something I had never done before. Miranda, he said, looking at me as I closed the door and set down my backpack. I have something of an idea for today, something I wouldn't normally suggest. What is it? I sat down expectantly at the table, looking at him. His assignments could be strange, but they were never boring. I would like to switch pieces. What? I stared at the half-finished painting he was working on. The first of strokes of a huge, titanic thing looming against swirling clouds. Sir, I'm not nearly that talented. Oh, you're not, are you? He smiled at me, in a way he did, indulgent and mischievous, as though if I weren't in on the secret yet. As though if you weren't in on the secret yet, you would be in a minute. Are you saying I haven't taught you well enough? Well, no, sir, of course not. I have taught you everything I have. My knowledge rests in you. Not to mention everything that you've accumulated from elsewhere. There is no one in this world I would trust to make this piece of art. It was truly meant to be. I presume there's supposed to be a what in there. There is no one else in this world I would trust to make the piece of art what it was truly meant to be. I opened and closed my mouth, looking at the thing. A part of me wanted to keep protesting, even though I knew he was right, whether or not he was exaggerating. But there was a part of me, the artist's heart, that looked at the shape and saw what it could be, that saw the way the lines would flow, the way the colors would bend and swirl together, the way the mass of the creature would loom in the half-light under whatever alien landscape looked up at it in awe. Almost without thinking, I nodded and picked up the brush. Hey Moon, how's it going? He smiled and leaned back in his chair. 4 hours it took me to finish that painting. 4 hours to take the first slight lines and mold and build them into something vast, ancient, and strange. A city sprawled below it. A city that could never exist, for only a madman would build such a thing. And below the clouds were sparkling moons, and behind the clouds were sparkling moons and alien stars. It was eerie. It was impossible. it was perfect. It was beautiful. Almost had it. I sat down in the chair, exhausted but proud of my work. My teacher stood, holding behind his hands behind his back, and walked over to it, staring at my drying paint. His eyes ran across it, taking in its details, and I could almost see him making notes in his head. And when he turned back, he was smiling, a genuine smile of pride that made my insides swell and burst with warm golden glow. Well done, Miranda. Well done. There is emotion here. That sense of scale you've captured that you capture with such masterful ease, placed beautifully within the scene that hooks the viewer and tells them a story. Well done. What do you call it? The painting. I looked at it for a long time, pondering, before the words came half bidden to my mouth. Lost Omandia. He turned, without an ounce of hesitation, and wrote my words in a delicate hand at the bottom left corner. As he finished, I stood, walking around the table to see what had become of my piece. It had started its life as a butterfly, its wings spread across the page, but under my teacher's hand it had become something more, a spiraling, farcical thing. Fratical thing. Wings somehow sparkling with colors despite the medium of charcoal. Whole worlds lurked in those wings, small strokes of granite telling tales I could not begin to guess at, and describing creatures that were alien even to me. My butterfly was a map of the cosmos, a field guide, a history book, a beautiful movie, a story long forgotten, and still, somehow, in a way, a butterfly. My teacher grinned slightly, watching my reaction. My apologies, Miranda. I didn't quite get time to finish it. I had no words. I just looked at his creation, my creation in some ways. And all I could think about was all I could say was a faint, awestruck, wow. He came around the table, put his hand on my shoulder. We have a gift, you and I. I do not think I was wrong in believing that you had seen more than some would consider your share. Oh, sorry. We have a gift, you and I. I do not think I was wrong in believing that you have seen more than some would have considered your share. What do you mean? I looked up at him, but his face swam and blurred, the remembered leviathan so intense I struggled to see past them. Whales. You can draw so many things, Miranda, but you always come back to whales. But not real whales, no. At least, not real here. Wait, what do you know about them? The whales? Oh my goodness, nothing at all. Not more than what you've drawn, but I know about other things. I know about my clawing ones, my star beasts, the things that call themselves odocaths. I know what really happened to Atlanta. And do you know how I know all this? I shook my head, staring into his strange dark eyes. He smiled. Neither do I. But, he said, raising a hand slightly, we are not alone in our talents. Far from it. And if you would accompany me, Miranda, I would like to make a proposal, a scholarship, if you will, to a very specific university. where talents like yours grow and blossom, and those who see into the void learn to understand what they behold. Think about it, Miranda. You could learn to truly share your leviathans with the world. Hold up. I raised a hand and sat down in the chair. You're talking about this stuff like you think it's real. Do you not think it, or do you think it isn't? Well, of course. I didn't know whether I did or not, but it felt almost jarring to hear it from him. And what makes you think so when whales walk in your dreams? I sat there for a long time, staring up at him. I wanted to believe him. I think I did believe him. Somewhere deep down, and there were times in my life when I would have let that belief surface, but at that particular moment, a million reasons were flashing through my head as to why I shouldn't. Was he testing me? Would he tell others? Was I really going to throw out my plans? My already accepted application for a college and a life I never even heard of? Sir, I stood up, hesitantly, my mind awash with racing thoughts. Why would he say these things? What was this college he was talking about? Who was he? Did I even know his name? Sir, I'm sorry. I think I'll have to decline. His face said everything that it needed to. Sadness, regret, apology, a hint of betrayal. I understand, Miranda. I wish you the best of luck with whatever you choose to make. You will bring great things to the world. He smiled, ever so slightly. I am sure of it. I have regretted that decision many times over the years. I regretted it when I regretted it when the college I chose was almost laughably easy. When my art classes would hold up depictions of when my art classmates would hold up depictions of furniture or friends or cats, that always somehow reminded me of Felix, and my leviathans would get reactions of mixed awe and confusion. I regretted it when I delved deeper and deeper into my marine biology minor, when I explored the tree of life of the deep, shadowy ocean and learned with growing frustration that no creature, living or dead, had ever borne even the slightest resemblance to the creature whose appearance only grew stronger in my mind. More than once, as I struggled through all-nighters and cram sessions, the question passed through my mind of what those at my tutor's college would have said in answer to my ever-growing, or my ever-stranger and more desperate questions. And strangely enough, as I grew more and more lost and frightened of the modernity, or the modernity of the world, the shell I had. Sorry, we're going to try one more time. And strangely enough, as I grew more and more lost and frightened of the modernity of the world, mundanity, that's the word, oh my goodness, of the mundanity of the world, the shell I had at 18 started to break down. Slowly, seeping through my mind, came the idea that these creatures might not be so impossible after all. It came to a head one morning, midway through my junior year. I spent hours making phone calls and doing Google research, trying to search for any trace of my tutor. My mother remembered him, of course, but at some point in the shuffle of life, his contact information had been lost. The internet yielded nothing but a grainy picture of an art piece that might have been his, with nothing leading on from it but a dead link. I could find nothing that sounded like his college at all. But the idea had forced itself into my mind. I would draw my leviathans again, not from memory this time, for I now believed it is memories, that it is memory, a memory that is not mine. I would draw them from life somehow. I would see them once. I have to, and I swore to myself that I would see them again. During my senior year, an opportunity came to my attention. My school participated in a project which organized research expeditions, including, to my great interest, one that involved exploring the Romanche Trench along the mid-Atlantic ridge. Several students, along with two of the world's most renowned marine biologists, Dr. Edwin Key and Dr. Angeline Heathers, would be making multiple dives into the deepest part of the Atlantic. At the point, my excitement was almost entirely academic, or at the time, my excitement was almost entirely academic. I knew there was nothing down there. Of course there wasn't. Nothing would live there. Nothing would live that far down. Nothing but bacteria and the occasional worm or crab. But the idea flickered nonetheless, the faint hope that somewhere down there my leviathans would be waiting. And somehow, despite the struggle and the hard work and the enormous amount of luck, I was one of the lucky few aboard the ship, sailing from Rio towards the hidden place in the rippling silence of the sea. Those days in the Grandfather are days I will never forget. She was a rickety old thing, and her crew was old salts whose English was broken, but whose Portuguese was a rippling font of strange tales of the sea. Her engines ground and churned, her black smoke made another cloud against the sunset. I remember I spent that week sitting on the deck in the shadow of the submarine, only occasionally interacting with others, just watching the ocean, my ocean, I often felt, change color from dawn to dusk to moonlit night. And then the call came, and the small ship came to a slow halt over the yawning abyss below us. All through the morning before the first dive, there was a rippling excitement through the ship. Even the crew, who would be doing nothing but watching camera feeds and maintaining the ship, were excited. The professors had excited grins of anticipation that would never seem to properly fade. Anna Ribeiro, the submarine pilot, was a blur of activity, supervising diagnostics and preparations as she got herself and Dr. Key ready for the dive. And then, almost before we had registered what was happening, we were sitting in the submarine, and Anna and the captain talking almost incessantly to each other over the radio as the crane ground outward and lowered us down with a splash into the sea. Down, down we went through the blue-black abyss. We were all close enough to each other that we had to struggle not to bump into each other. We were all close enough together that we had to struggle not to bump into each other. Strapped tightly into the seat and lit by the flicker and hum of the dashboard, The only way to see outside was through a tiny reinforced porthole, and though the exterior lights glowed in beams through the water, they did nothing but enhance the feeling of the blackness beyond them. There was nothing out there in the open ocean. No schools of fish, no floating plankton, nothing. Just endless blue water, so thick and dark we couldn't tell if it was day or night. We descended about 2 miles on the first day, deep enough that the submarine's lights started to glide down the rough walls of the trench. Dr. Key and I talked excitedly back and forth, pointing out anything that looked interesting, and Anna managed somehow to steer us towards it through her chatter with the captain. We found a lot that day, several new species of worm, a little wriggling fish that neither of us could quite identify, and then, quite suddenly, Anna announced, "All right, we're gonna start going back up now." Already? I was almost shaken awake, my eyes having to tear themselves from the SEPA muck outside. But we've barely seen anything. It's been almost 6 hours. But there's so much more. There has to be. This can't be all of it. I leaned towards the porthole, peering out into the darkness beyond, even as I felt Dr. Key's confused eyes on the back of my head. "Miranda," he said hesitantly. "Miranda, we've done a lot today. We can go back up. You'll probably have a dissertation on the fish alone." "Fuck the dissertation!" I said, snapping around my head to face him as the seatbelts dug into me. We can't go back now. There's so much below us, Doctor. Water. It goes down and down and down, filled with ancient mysteries. You can't feel it? You can't feel it calling to you? He shook his head. "Miss Ribeiro." "Thank you, motorcycle." "Miss Ribeiro, just take us up." "Yes, sir." Her hands made delicate motions over the submarine's controls, and slowly the needle of the little depth gauge started to crawl upwards, back towards the hollow, empty sanity of the world above. I was quiet then. I was quiet as the submarine bobbed up to the surface, water running down in little waves down the portholes as the magnetic clamp of the crane sounded against the hull. I stayed quiet over the next week as the others descended into the dark, mysterious depths, like tiny crabs locked in a steel shell as they moved through the yawning vastness. But I was waiting. One of these days, it would be my turn again. I took up drawing again over that week. That place, the glittering water, the rickety boat floating like clouds over the deep, deep dark. It woke something in me, the same thing that had awoken in my tutor's studio all those years ago. I drew the deep depths of the trench, not the mud and the slime the submarine had clung to like a worried mouse, but the open water 5 miles down. Sometimes it would be no more than a gradient, an attempt to capture the way that the light faded into the deep, perfect blackness. But sometimes it would be other things, the huge creatures and lost civilizations I imagined deep down in the depths, on the true surface of the earth, far removed from the light, fluffy things above. And above them, as always, loomed my leviathans, huge things moving in the distant horizon, always too far to see. And ever so slowly, as the submarine descended and rose to the surface again and again and again without me, I began to form a plan. Down again, my second actual descent into the depths, with fellow student Manuel Kittel in the seat beside me. Another 2 hours of sitting there, idly chatting as bright, glittering blue changed ever so slowly into deep, impenetrable black, and my heart beat in my ears with anticipation. Was this a good idea? Of course not. How could it be? Perhaps I had made a mistake. Perhaps I should simply let the dive go as planned. But I didn't want to do that. Whatever consequences would come of this, they would be worth it. I would make sure of that. I spent an hour with Manuel, categorizing worms and crustaceans and the occasional small fish, just the same as last time. An hour spent staring in awe at a blade of grass when an untapped jungle loomed below us. And then I slid the knife from my pocket ever so gently and held it to Anna's throat. Turn off the radio. Miss Clementine? Miss Clementine? Her voice trembled as she hesitantly obeyed, and Manuel turned to look at me in horror. Miss Clementine, what are you doing? Take us out into the cavern, take us out into the canyon, into the open water, then take us down. I want to see the bottom. But I knew what she was going to say. It was too deep. The sub would be crushed, but I didn't care. I told her so as the canyon walls swung slowly away outside. Elation was rushing through my body. At this moment, I felt in tune with everything, with the entirety of the submarine. I felt the rumbling engine, the searchlight eyes. I felt Anna's sheer terror and Manuel's gentler, somehow worse dread as I forced them to what they knew would be their deaths. I felt the trembling metal of the knife, balancing a second away from cutting Anna open, and even as I drank it all in, I knew it didn't matter. This bubble of mine, but it was nothing but a bubble when outside it was the ocean. And as the giddy sensation pumped through my body, I laughed and laughed like a child again. Down and down went the small sub, searchlights fading into the dark around them. Down, down, that depth gauge creeping higher and higher, the only visible change in tense silence. 3 meters down, 3 miles down, 3.5, 4 glorious miles beneath the surface of the ocean. And then it went wrong. I had been holding the knife to her neck the whole time. I knew that the instant I set it down, she would go to the surface again. But it was an awkward position, and my arm was starting to get tired. And Manuel saw it. He lunged at me with a strength that I didn't know his wiry body possessed. There was a snap and a whir as his seatbelt unbuckled. And then his hand was upon my wrist and his arm around my head, both squeezing until at last I cried out in pain, Manuel, what are you doing? Shut up! Just shut up! He was breathing hard, his fingers leaving bruises around my wrist. This has gone on far enough. Just stay here. Don't talk. Don't move. Panic was flooding my brain as the submarine started to tilt upwards again. I couldn't go back up there. I couldn't go back to the fluffy, airy place where mankind crawled like lice and squabbled over scraps, where I could never, ever be down here in the beautiful black depths. And then, quite suddenly, something happened. I had squeezed my eyes shut, almost blinded by terror as I finally dropped the knife. And then the pressure was gone, and there was screaming. Not human screaming, though terror shriekings were faintly audible through it. The agonized screaming of metal in pain, crumpling and bulking under impossible pressure. My eyes snapped open. Manuel was in the floor. No, Manuel was on the floor. No, Manuel was in the floor, half his body clipping through like a bleeding glitch in reality. Anna was choking in horror, staring as her instruments went wrong, as the compass spun like a top, and the depth gauge bottomed out hard enough to rattle against the casing. And around me, the submarine was crumpling, folding in on itself like a crushed soda can, lights flickering out one by one as huge dents slammed in through the hull. And in the sudden darkness, I had the foresight to look out the window. Out there in the darkness, out there in the blackness, that perfect infinite black, there that the puny eyes of surface creatures could not hope to penetrate. But no, not quite perfect, not black, a velvet dark shade of midnight blue. There were only seconds to stare out that window, but those seconds were all I needed. Death had come for me, and for the poor others I dragged along this journey. Death in the impossible abyss, in an ocean far too deep to be anywhere on Earth. But I didn't care. My life's purpose was complete. My tutor was forgiven. My artwork was vindicated. For out that window, looming far bigger than I had imagined on the horizon, were my leviathans. And that was Leviathans. We did it! Oh. There you go. I hope everybody enjoyed. Fumbled a little bit, but still got it. Still got it at the end. Man, that took almost 45 minutes to read. We'll never go to the ocean. Oh, how to say it? I have mass thalassophobia, as everyone here has witnessed before, but I love reading stories from thalassophobia. I think it's very, very fun. Also, Geekbot, I'll just say it now. I am going to be uploading these two stories, but if for some reason you want to use them, or any stories that I've read over the last 3 weeks, they're free game for you if you want to use them. That's not me telling you that you have to. I'm just going to give you the permissions now. Anything I read today, last Saturday, or the Saturday before that, you're free game to use them if you want to use them. I like that story, but I hate it. Hate's incorrect. I hate the main character. Just the idea of being so possessed by this idea that you're willing to have other people die because of your incompetence or your insanity. You know what I mean? But I also love, you can feel the Lovecraftian, what do you call it? The Lovecraftian touch. Cosmic horror, thank you. Yeah, the eldritch horror. Just that. It's lovely. Just that ominous, like, you know, having memories of things that aren't yours and being obsessed with the things in the truly in the inconceivable blackness of the ocean. You know, it's just got such a good feel to it. The energy from the characters. Yeah, exactly. We know her full name as well. It's Miranda Rose Clementine. Like, we know the entire name of the character just simply through the story. Like, there was never a moment where you had to be taught. There was no just like, my name is Miranda Rose Clementine, and I'm 4 years old. It was, Miss Clementine, are you all right? There is, I wrote, when I finally decided to, and no problem at all, Brian. You have yourself a good night. Thank you so much for sticking around as long as you did. There was when I decided to sign it, I signed it with the shape of a little rose, my middle name. And then when people later call her Miranda, you're taught the character's name through story, not through exposition. It's a very good story. I appreciate there's a couple things I wish that were mildly changed, but they're nitpicky as heck. So I'm not even worried about it. Whew. Yeah, absolutely eccentric. And this story is a really good example of the show don't tell. Because of course a tutor is going to refer to somebody by their name. Of course they would. And since it's a proper tutor, it's a private tutor, there's a chance that means that this person probably came from money, so they're probably going to be named by their last name. It's all just tiny little things. They're just like, yeah, no, I see no reason not to. I see no reason not to believe this. This makes sense. And you're always, I love having stories like that. Like, I hate it, but I love it when stories have moments like that. Like, there's a college that you could join for people with your gift. And it's like, I'll have to decline. And you're just like, well, what was the college? What would she have learned there? How would the story have been different if she had joined? We'll never know. There's just enough information that you're intrigued, but there's not enough information to make any kind of concrete conclusion. Like this is one that I remember reading or hearing once. I don't remember where I read this, but it was discussing like how do you do world building in dungeons in a TTRPG setting. And one of the ways that this one person described it is like have NPCs mention it in passing as the party approaches. Like one of the ways that they described it was if you're trying to depict to your party that there is a lot of war and strife, when they enter a room with someone important, have someone already in there, and the last words that they hear is the enemy is amassing in the west and we are ready for them. And then have the other NPC, fantastic news, thank you. Now if you'll excuse me, I have guests. Boom. Party has information now that they didn't have before. They can ask about it. And literally, if you don't want to build any more on it, and the party goes, what was that about the Western Front? You could just, let's say the party is supposed to meet them because they have a job to go clear out, like, an old keep or something. They can be like, what was that about the Western Front? And he's like, pay it no mind. It is of no concern to you. It is being dealt with. Now, let us focus on the actual task at hand. The old keep. You know, just immediately just like, boom. Almost sounds like Alan Wake monologuing. Well, it's the Dungeon Master / Game Master's job to be... How to say it? You are the stage, you are the actors, but you're not the players. That's important to always remember. You're not the players. Sorry. I've been watching a lot of Dungeons and Dragons and like just TTRPG stuff in general because I want to do another session with my group. Even though I'm an ADHD pain in the ass who has a really hard time actually sitting down and just working on stuff. But yeah, it's that idea, right? Give the audience, whatever the audience might be, a little taste of information. And if they're interested, they can dive more into it. In this case, you can't. And also, the dive is technically an unintentional pun, so my apologies for that. But like in this case, we can't, but we can speculate. And I like that. Especially if you have somebody who writes stuff like this, but they write it in universe. You know what I mean? Like they have other stories that may also hint towards this. I don't know. I'm just ideas are bouncing around in my head right now. Pay me no mind. Do not look at the man behind the curtain. All right. My brain is bouncing something fierce, so I believe I'm going to send us off to... This isn't going to be one of those odd times where right as I raid somebody, somebody else pops in, is it? Alright, let's see. Oh, wait. I know what to do. I never do this, and I should be doing this. Refresh. And wait, what is this game? And also apologies for not looking at chat for a second. And thank you, Geekbot, for being here. Actually, you know what? Does anybody have a recommendation for a raid? Somebody potentially also reading something or watching something or playing something kind of spooky? Erwan was one of the thoughts that was one of the peeps that I was thinking of. Because I know Erwan, I think, is watching a show at the moment. I think. Oh, she's watching a documentary. Fears of Fathoms? I don't know who that is, Geekbot. Do you have a link? I walked into the stream and there was a loud thud. From the show or from... Oh, it's a game. Ah. Being played by... I don't know who this is, but I'm going to look it up really quick. Do you recommend them? Geekbot? Are they of savory sort? Are they of the friendly variety? Good friend of cheese. Ah! Hold on, let me peek into their stream really quick, see what they're doing. Because there's 2 of them. what? We'll give them a try. Why not? We gotta try new streamers sometimes, right? But I will do a quick shout out to Erwan. So if anybody also wants to head in that direction, you are totally welcome to. The big problem, right? It's like, I want to support this person, but I need to try just raid some other peeps too from time to time. Bit my lip. All right. So, socials. There we go. Socials. Twitter, Discord, YouTube, VODs, ASMR, which has been very much neglected, but I'm going to try to put some time towards that soon. And we are going to go ahead and raid. Is it Emmy Akina? I hope I'm saying that correctly. We're going to raid Emmy Akina. Just to read her description really quickly. Magic girl / maid who plays visual novels, JRPGs, and anything else I make fun of and voice act. Stop in for silly voices, stupid jokes, and random cosplay. Boom. Easy. All right. Raid S. Raid F. There you go. If you guys are subscribed, please use the top raid message. If you guys are not subscribed, please use the bottom raid message. Everybody, thank you so much for sticking around. I'm sorry that I was so late today. That's on me. Very much so. But I hope that everybody had fun. I hope that everybody got nice and spooked up. Have yourselves a great Halloween weekend. I hope that you guys have a great time, whatever it is that you happen to do. And, of course, for the outro, thank you guys so much for sticking around, whether you were chatting, whether you were lurking, whether you just popped in and out for a second, know that you were super appreciated. I hope that you guys are having a great day, afternoon, evening, or night, whatever time it happened to be for you. I hope that you guys are taking care of yourselves. I hope that you are drinking plenty of water. And when you finally do sleep, whatever time it happened to be for you, I hope that you have a very restful sleeps. Thank you so much, bedheads and sleepy breads, for sticking around, and I hope to see you at the next sleepover. Bye-bye.